flash flood trapped 7 French cavers 100 meters underground. As the water rises, it forces the men up against the cave roof. There is no escape. In southern France, a freak storm turns a weekend caving adventure into a life and death struggle. 7 men scramble into their life rafts and wait helplessly as the floodwaters force them relentlessly upward. The air pocket that's keeping them alive is shrinking. If the water keeps rising, it will crush them into the cave's ceiling and drown them. Nicolas Violand is on his first overnight caving expedition. It is a terrifying initiation.
I was 19 years old at the time. Why, at the beginning of my life, am I going to die here?
Nicolas is the youngest member of the team. He and 6 more experienced cavers have been planning this expedition for months. All of them are from the nearby town of Gramat. They all share one passion: exploring the planet's underground frontiers. The Viterreu cave system is right in their backyard. It stretches for 14 kilometers beneath the fields and forests around Gramat. It's a giant subterranean network of caverns, with an underground river and caves up to 40 meters tall. There's only one entrance. This is how Nicolas and the others have descended into Viterreu. The entry point is a narrow, 40-meter deep well that connects with the underground river. At the start of the expedition, the river is just ankle-deep in most sections. In other areas, they need rafts to make their way through the deeper water.
Our goal was to follow the underground river and check out parts of the cave that hadn't been explored in 15 or 20 years.
2 days into their expedition, a freak wave of violent thunderstorms sweeps through the region. Dumping 62 millimeters of rain in just 12 hours. The underground river rises quickly, flooding the cave and blocking the cavers' only escape route. Nicolas and the 6 other cavers have been trapped for most of the day. They huddle together just 1.5 meters from the roof of the cave.
There were no sounds anymore, no noises. It was a silent lake that was rising little by little.
Listen, guys. If we get out of this...
Nicolas tries to boost the group's morale. He tells his friend that he'll buy them all a car if they get out alive. He's only half serious.
We
were supposed to meet up with another group of cavers the next day. So once the water rose, we knew our families would sound the alarm and contact the rescuers.
300 kilometers away in another cave system, Bernard Tort leads a rescue training exercise. Bernard is a world-renowned caver with nearly 2 decades of experience. Now his expertise is urgently needed in France's biggest ever cave rescue attempt.
Hello? On reçoit un nouvel appel, nous annonçant
We got a phone call that there was a group of 7 people trapped in the Viterreu.
On apprend l'ampleur de la cavité.
It's a huge cave system, and the flow of the river there gets incredibly powerful when there are massive floods. It becomes really dangerous. So we took this call very seriously.
On a peut-être une situation dramatique avec nos 7 rescapés
We knew we had a potentially tragic situation on our hands.
dans une situation très très grave.
For the men trapped in their life rafts, the hours pass slowly and painfully. At 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, the water is bone-chillingly cold.
We felt abandoned. We asked, why did this happen to us?
The only thing keeping them alive is a pressurized pocket of air between the water and the top of the cavern. The men know their situation is precarious. Any change in the pressure inside the cave could make the water rise suddenly.
Personnellement, je me posais la question.
I was asking myself, will I have enough air to breathe?
It
was either we get out, or we will be left to die.
On en finit là.
The men must use their lamps sparingly. The lamps burn a flammable gas to make light, and this process consumes precious oxygen. With every breath, they rob the tiny air pocket of its life-saving oxygen. And every time they exhale, they fill the air chamber with increasing amounts of deadly carbon dioxide. As carbon dioxide levels accumulate in the body, breathing accelerates, heart rate increases, tissue fluids become acidic. Extremely high levels of CO2 can cause respiratory paralysis, convulsions, coma, even death. Computer technician Philippe Verger is the team's technical expert. He uses an altimeter to check the air pressure in the bubble. He knows that as long as the pressure remains stable, the water will not rise or drop suddenly. Philippe reports that the pressure is high and holding for the moment. But any change in another part of the river could eliminate their safe haven in seconds. In the town of Gramat, family and friends of the cavers are worried. They fear that the torrential rains have turned the Viterreu cave system into a death trap. Rescuers set up headquarters on a military base above the cave system. Rescue groups from across the country converge on the small town. But because the entrance well is flooded, they are unable to get down in the caves. One of the key rescuers to arrive on the scene is Guy Bariviera.
My feeling is that it might be somewhere between here and here. Michael said that, and you spoke to them 2 months ago?
He's a veteran advisor with the country's caving rescue organization called Spilio Secours Français. More importantly, it's where he grew up and began caving as a boy.
Here's what we know. There's been a ton of rain. We have 7 cavers trapped underground, and they've got enough food to last them 3 days. We have to try and rescue them. But we know the only entrance is filled with water.
Nicolas Violand and his fellow cavers have now been trapped for almost 24 hours. So far, the air pressure has held steady. But they're in for the shock of their lives. Upstream in another part of the cave system, some debris breaks loose. As the blockage clears, there's a sudden, dangerous drop in air pressure, then a powerful surge of water.
The moment the water goes down, it goes down fast. Faster than it rose.
On a la cage thoracique qui est prise.
Our torsos were shaking and trembling. Our ears were blocked. You really had the impression you were squished into a bottle and being shaken in every direction.
As the water level drops, the men clamber onto a ledge that had been submerged until now.
We were worried. It was like a whirlpool that was going to suck us down underwater, bash us into the walls, and drown us in the current.
The sudden draining of the water disrupts the pressure in the gallery and creates a bizarre phenomenon. For a period of nearly 10 minutes, multiple waves batter the inside of the cavern.
The noise was absolutely infernal. We were really in the middle of the elements that were in a fury.
The unpredictable underground river presents a huge challenge for the rescuers. In order to conquer it, they desperately need the expertise of world caving specialist Bernard Tort.
The cave system actually descends, and the river flows through it. So essentially, the current flows downward from the highest point to the lowest point.
He heads for Gramma with a special kayak ideal for this kind of rescue. The water has receded. The trapped cavers make camp on a 3-meter wide ledge. The waves have left them badly shaken.
We had to organize. We had to do something. We said to ourselves, survival starts right now. We had about 3 days of waiting. We figured it would take about 3 days for the water level to drop before we could head back out.
Got some soup packets.
The men carefully ration the food that's left. Packets of soup, a few cereal bars, rice cakes, and some caramels.
Chicken curry.
On a commencé à faire un peu le compte.
We started to tabulate what we had for supplies, what we had for light, how much water we had. We had a stalactite that ran with water, drip by drip, that we collected and purified with hydroclonazone tablets.
Bernard Tort arrives at Viterreu. By now, the floodwaters have receded. This means that Tort can attempt to enter the cave system along with Guy Bariviera, the local expert.
Une fois que je suis arrivé sur place,
As soon as I arrived on site, I was updated on the situation,
de l'opération,
and we quickly made the decision to form a team that would include Guy Bariviera and myself.
qui serait constitué de Guy Bariviera et moi-même.
Rescuing the trapped men is the biggest challenge of Bernard's career. He and Guy will have to navigate a maze of dangerous caves and unexplored galleries to find the cavers. The rescuers know that the trapped cavers planned to go to some of the highest points of the system. If they made it that far, they might still be alive.
Donc l'eau est bien montée de 30 mètres.
Even though the water rose 30 meters at the lower end of the cave system, it didn't mean that it completely flooded the upper end. So, if the trapped cavers were up there when the water was rising, we had every hope of finding them in perfect health.
De les retrouver en parfaite santé.
Bernard and Guy prepare for their underground search with military precision, gearing up with the most sophisticated rescue equipment. This includes Bernard's special two-man inflatable kayak. Guy, who's already been underground on a scouting mission, tells Bernard that the current is very dangerous.
The objective of the mission was go to the furthest point possible in the cave system. We figured once the water started rising, the cavers would have moved camp, would have withdrawn to a higher part of the cavern.
So Bernard and I left on his customized raft with a lot of equipment to fight the current and to do a lot of climbing.
When Bernard and Guy descend into the cave system, they discover that the underground river is still raging in some passages. In others, it's flooded right to the ceiling. Making any headway among the jagged rocks is taxing and dangerous.
We had enough room between the roof and the surface of the water to move forward, but it was difficult because the water had a violently strong current.
After nearly 5 hours of slogging through the cave system, they're finally within striking distance of the cave called Salle du Cône. This is where Bernard and Guy hope the men are trapped, in the higher galleries. The only way to get to those galleries is to climb.
Imagine the Salle du Cône is a chamber that is pointed. So we arrived at a gallery that is situated at this level, and then we had to climb the slope towards the summit of the chamber. It was about a 15-meter climb to get up to the upper gallery.
It's a grueling 5-hour climb. The two men drag themselves forward, hauling heavy equipment and Bernard's inflatable kayak. When they finally reach the upper gallery, it's waterlogged, but otherwise empty, except for one disturbing sign that someone or something has passed through here.
Once we made it to the upper gallery of Salle du Cône, it's basically the highest point in the area. We looked around and noticed there were little bits of plastic stuck to the ceiling. That was incredibly disappointing and distressing because this meant the whole network had been filled with water. It was pretty tragic.
Guy and Bernard know that if the men were here, they would have drowned. If they're still alive, they have to be somewhere even higher in the cave system. The next big cave is Clé de Voûte, another 2 kilometers upstream. Bernard and Guy want to press ahead, but it's too dangerous. The water completely fills the low sections in front of them. They're forced to turn around and head back to rescue headquarters to devise a new plan. Nicolas and the other cavers can only wait. With no sense of time and no daylight, sleep comes in fits and bursts. Some sleep, others talk, and always they worry about the changing water level.
Donc au fur et à mesure, la survie a commencé.
So basically, we went into survival mode.
Manger toutes les 12 heures, c'est
We figured it would be a good idea to eat every 12 hours, and we try to really conserve our energy.
On avait un réchaud.
We had a stove to heat the water so that we could hydrate ourselves as well as warm ourselves.
Et on avait
And we still had a bit of fuel for our lamps to eventually light the way out.
gaz acétylène pour nous éclairer pour la sortie.
They fantasize about the perfect meal.
À partir du moment où on est
Almost immediately,
on a vraiment
the first thing that comes to mind is hunger.
la chose qui vient, c'est la faim.
They share and savor memories of great restaurant meals and favorite recipes.
On pense
All you think about is food. Eat, eat, eat.
et, il faut faire
And so we had to be really careful and ration our meals.
nos repas. Je me souviens d'un repas où on
I remember we had one meal that consisted of a spoonful of curried rice,
15 centilitres.
15 milliliters of hot tea,
On devrait chauffer un petit
a
peu.
quarter of mandarin orange, and a rotten chestnut. That was a meal.
When Bernard and Guy resurface, the rescuers adopt a new strategy to speed up the search for the missing cavers. They tell their fellow rescuers that it's difficult and risky to make headway underground. They'll have to find a quicker way to get access to key caverns. It's time to bring in the heavy machinery. The topographers will try to pinpoint the location of caves that rescuers haven't been able to reach via the underground route. The drilling teams will punch through the earth to get direct access to the chambers below. Drilling should create new entry and exit points along the cave system. This will provide shortcuts for the rescuers and hopefully bring them within reach of the trapped cavers more safely and more quickly. Deciding exactly where to drill is a daunting task. Just 30 centimeters in the wrong direction can mean missing the entire cave system.
Sur cette opération, il nous fallait deux types de machines.
We needed two types of machines for the drilling operation.
Profond.
We needed drills that could go very deep to try to locate the river, and we also needed drills that could bore out a hole large enough in diameter for a person to fit through. That was essential.
Once started, the drilling teams hammer away at the rock day and night. At the same time, other rescuers try the underground route via the well, which is the cave's only natural entrance. They must work their way up the river to where they think the men could be trapped. The 7 trapped cavers have managed to hold on for almost a week,
What if it snowed in the valley?
but their situation is getting desperate.
It's totally impossible.
They're almost out of food. What's worse,
I just wish they knew. Can you imagine what your mother
the water is rising again.
With news of the rising water, the fear flooded right back in. We checked the level quickly and saw the water kept on rising, and the current was getting stronger and stronger. And then the biggest fear for all of us was, we all looked up at the ceiling, and everyone said, no way. There's no way we're going in the rafts again. It was so horrible, so difficult physically, that we wouldn't survive a second flood.
Rescuers work around the clock to find the 7 missing cavers. Then the weather takes another disastrous turn. For the second time in a week, torrential rain hammers southern France. Water floods the cave entrance, shutting off all access. A team of rescuers is underground. Now they too are cut off by the rising water. Above ground, Bernard Tort has to find a way to warn them, and fast. He scribbles a message on a notepad, attaches it to a bare lamp bulb and a phone, then sends it all down a small drill hole. He must draw the attention of his men to warn them of the dangerous new flooding.
So there was the phone, there was the lamp, and there was the message. And the objective of that was to stop them from going any further. We didn't want them to keep going back toward the entrance to Viterreu because we knew the water had risen there and they would have been trapped.
At first, Bernard gets no response from the team underground. He waits for 3 hours, then a welcome sign of life from the rescuers below. Bernard warns them to stay where they are until the floodwaters recede.
Okay, got it.
There's nothing these trapped rescuers can do until the water level drops again, or the drilling crew enlarges the hole so a body can squeeze through. But they are safe.
Okay, adjust your stuff.
Elsewhere in the cave system, Nicolas Violand and his 6 trapped colleagues have used up almost all the fuel for their headlamps. Even if the water level drops, they no longer have enough light or even the strength to walk out of the cave system on their own. Depression sets in.
We were really wishing the water wouldn't rise to that level again. For me, if that was the case, I would have probably let myself sink. It was a point at which we all wanted to abandon it, to let it all go.
On avait envie de tout abandonner, de tout lâcher.
Drilling teams work around the clock in the race to blast into the rock and enlarge the existing hole. Finally, the giant drill busts through.
Donc ça, c'était vraiment capital pour nous, ce forage. Donc c'est clair que une fois...
That was a major accomplishment for us. Once we created the new opening, it was like removing a whole piece of the cave network.
Tout un morceau du réseau.
But the rescue mission is far from over. Even though they've created a shortcut into the cave network, they're still not certain where the 7 missing men might be, or even if they are still alive. Time underground takes its toll on Nicolas and his fellow cavers. Their main preoccupation now is to fight off dehydration and hypothermia. And now there's another worry. Their supply of water purification tablets has almost run out.
J'étais pas fâché contre quelqu'un ou contre...
I wasn't mad at anyone. I was depressed. I felt abandoned. Abandoned by life completely.
Par la vie, quoi, tout simplement.
By now, the massive rescue effort is an international story. The media has descended on the quiet countryside. Bernard Tort and his team now have to deal with a new set of challenges, especially how to prevent any bad news from leaking out.
Ça faisait près de 200-300 personnes qui venaient.
There were about 200 to 300 people who came from everywhere. And we had huge problems trying to control that. We heard that some reporters had plugged themselves into our telephone system. We had microphones planted in different command posts. We had people listening to our conversations on long-range microphones.
On avait des gens qui écoutaient avec des micros à longue distance les conversations qu'on pouvait avoir d'un côté ou de l'autre.
Bernard gathers his team and briefs them on the media storm. From now on, they must use coded messages when calling each other.
Ces codes, c'est bien clair.
The codes were used so that the media didn't understand the meaning of our words. So basically, we had time to organize and tell the families.
De prévenir les familles.
The rescuers' code, if they find the survivors alive, is "send us some food." If the cavers are found dead, the code is "send us some carbide." As the drilling teams zero in on the large gallery called Clé de Voûte, the calcified rock slows them down. This kind of rock has a lot of cracks and fissures, which can cause the drill head to bend or break.
Et à l'aide d'une petite caméra, on a descendu.
With the help of a little camera that we sent down into each
On
hole,
a regardé s'il y
we
avait
looked to see if there were any galleries. At the same time, we measured the speed of the air current, because if there's a strong air current, that means there's a direct connection with the larger cave network.
connexion directe avec le réseau.
The drill has penetrated 28 meters down into the rock. Suddenly, it breaks through to a large cavity of air.
Donc, d'un avis unanime.
We immediately decided to widen the drilled hole.
Bernard and Guy hope the cavers are trapped here, somewhere in the galleries of Clé de Voûte. But the camera can find no signs of the missing men.
Underground, we always have the impression of hearing noises. Bizarre noises, strange noises. Above all, when there's a river and the sound of water.
Whoa.
Nicolas thinks he hears a voice.
I hear it.
One of the others is also sure he's heard something.
Is it voices?
Au milieu des bruits...
In the midst of the sounds of water and the sounds of voices that we constantly heard, I believe I heard something a little bit stronger,
Un peu plus fort, un bruit un
a little bit louder.
Do you think they're coming?
They wonder if it might be rescuers. But for every moment of hope, there's a moment of despair when they realize it's just an illusion.
Something's holding them up. Yeah.
On s'est dit,
We said,
c'est une hallucination.
is it hallucination?
Ça serait bizarre.
Two people at the same time? That would be bizarre.
Est-ce qu'il y a effectivement
Is there someone who's trying to contact us?
qui cherche à prendre contact avec
Is there a rescue?
Est-ce qu'il y a des secours?
We looked to our
On a
left,
essayé de regarder à droite,
looked to our
à gauche.
right,
On a vu personne.
but there was no one.
Oui, on a
There was nothing.
vu personne d'autre. Tous les sept, on pensait énormément à
All
notre
seven of us thought a lot about our families.
vraiment mort d'inquiétude.
We thought they must be dead worried.
On
After
espère
waiting
que
several days like
c'est
this,
passé
we all
plusieurs
wish they
jours,
still
qu'ils
had
ont
hope,
encore de l'espoir,
that they all
et
thought,
qu'elles se disent que
as long as we don't find them,
tant qu'on a
they are still
trouvé un corps,
alive.
c'est qu'ils sont encore en vie.
Les rescapés se connaissaient tous, mais les familles se connaissaient pour la majorité d'entre elles.
The survivors knew each other, but the families also knew one another. During the whole rescue, they tried to help us.
Essayer de nous aider, essayer de nous soutenir. Les équipes de foreurs, les équipes, toutes nos équipes de sauveteurs qui travaillaient en surface, travaillaient 24 heures sur 24.
The drilling teams, the rescue teams on the surface, we were all working 24 hours around the clock. It was raining, it was snowing, it was freezing. The support of the families was very important and helpful and kind to the rescuers. They made us coffee, they brought us food. They really tried to lend support to all levels of the rescue effort in the face of a daunting challenge.
Apporter leur soutien à tous les niveaux de la pyramide et certainement pas dans les endroits les plus confortables, dans les endroits où les difficultés étaient les plus rudes.
The rescuers are encouraged by the enlarged drill hole above Clé de Voûte. They know that if the trapped cavers are still alive, this is the most likely place to find them. Guy Bariviera prepares to descend into the cave system once again.
Okay, good. All right.
Guy est rentré sur cette opération.
Guy went underground about 5 or 6 times, and every time he was down for long, complex, and intense missions. All that, combined with fatigue, puts a rescuer in danger of getting injured.
Donc, je dirais, pour moi, il était une personne.
For a guy like me, Guy was the most important resource. I had to send him on missions where his presence was indispensable.
Où sa présence allait être indispensable.
There were 2 possible routes, a main climb and a gallery that went off in another direction.
Guy unhooks his line. He will be joined by another rescuer. Guy believes that if he can discover a passageway through to the river, he'll be able to find the trapped men. If they're still alive, they've got to be close.
We went into that gallery with the hope of finding our survivors. We covered 300 meters. It was the first time that anyone disturbed the soil. And we didn't manage to find a direct link to the river. No sound, no sign of air currents.
Guy explores other areas of the cave system with no result and no sign of the river.
Finally, after many climbs and many obstructions, we reached a cavity of a few meters that blocked off yet another gallery. As soon as I got through the rockfall, there was an enormous sound. It was the sound of the river, the rumbling of water in the gallery, the resonance of that water. And also at the same time, there was the current of air that was tickling my nostrils.
The discovery of the underground river is a big breakthrough. Guy believes that the trapped cavers must now be within shouting distance.
We didn't hear them. There was no sign of life. But at least the search could now accelerate.
They push boulders into the cavern below, hoping that the noise will spark a response from the trapped men. But again, there's no answer.
We'd been underground exploring for several hours by now.
Guy reports to the rescuers on the surface.
43, do you read me?
He tells them that although he has found the river and cleared a passageway to it, there is no sign of cavers and he cannot go any further.
We'd finally found a connection to the river at this end of the system, but the cavers weren't here. and so we needed to deploy new teams to look for them.
After more than a week of rescue work and 5 marathon underground missions, Guy is exhausted. He has no choice but to head back to the surface. When he arrives up top, he briefs the others about the shaft that leads to the underground river and where they need to go next. He's set the path, and a fresh team of rescuers can now continue the hunt for the trapped cavers.
A few hundred meters. Reach a giant shaft.
Cyril Arnaud is a member of the next unit going in.
Okay.
Guy's discovery of the shaft leading to the river was huge for us. We now had a new access point where we could quickly put our feet back in the river.
At this point, every minute counts. There has been no word from the trapped cavers for almost 200 hours. There's no evidence that they have survived the floodwaters. Cyril's team plows forward. They see a bend up ahead.
I think it was about 8 or 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. Everyone was in their sleeping bags. And then distinctly I heard a voice. Someone who was talking to someone else. There, I felt my stomach going nuts. My throat closed.
The 7 cavers have been trapped for 9 days. They are so weak and disoriented that they can't even tell if the sounds they hear are real.
There it is again. Et là, à ce moment-là,
And at that moment, everyone yelled with all their lungs.
tous ses poumons. Oh! Et c'est les quelques secondes qui suivent.
Then we waited. All 7 of us.
On allait-
Stressed, tense, shivering on edge.
Et puis à un moment,
And then we heard
la réponse.
the answer we were waiting for 10 days.
Ça y est. La sensation qu'on a eue.
When we saw the rescuers arrive later, the sensation was unimaginable.
C'est inimaginable.
After 9 days trapped 100 meters underground, Nicolas and his friends now know they are going to get out of the cave alive. To celebrate, they present the rescuers with one of the stale pieces of cake they've been saving.
It was contact with another human being.
Notre être humain,
To know that we were not forgotten,
qu'on n'était pas
not
abandonné,
abandoned,
et que finalement,
and finally that we would get out.
on s'en sortirait.
Though the men have been found alive, Cyril decides not to call up with the code.
Any word yet?
He'd rather deliver the news personally to Bernard.
Alors, ça a été fait dans un seul but.
He did that for one reason only, to keep the information as confidential as possible.
confidentiel possible.
Because we knew, on the surface, there were a lot of people listening in on our comm systems, and if they decoded our message, it could have caused some serious problems.
L'interprétation de nos données codées aurait éventuellement pu poser des problèmes.
In the middle of the night, on the 10th day, the cavers begin to emerge from the bowels of Viterreu. Nicolas Violand is the first to be winched to the surface.
Je pourrais jamais assez remercier
I could never thank enough all of the people who took part in the rescue.
un tant soit peu au secours. Jamais
It will forever be etched in my memory,
dans nos yeux,
in my eyes.
toujours c'est les premières images.
We'll always remember those first images of the rescuers looking at us,
Ébahis,
seeing us alive at the end of 10 days.
et Et nous, de le voir arriver
10 days of anxiety.
finalement au bout de 10 jours d'angoisse.
What can I do to thank them? You'd need more than one lifetime for that.
It was an immense joy for me when we finally found them. I was a bit disappointed that I wasn't the one who actually met them underground, but to see them a little later when they came out was fantastic.
Alors, évidemment, le point
This operation was the biggest and longest rescue effort ever in France.
c'est le fait qu'on ait retrouvé les 7 rescapés vivants. C'est-à-dire,
Obviously, the high point of it is that we found the 7 men alive. For me, it will always be one of those experiences that is totally extraordinary.
After the rescue, Nicolas became an SSF rescuer himself, as did several other cavers.
An experience like the one we went through, it certainly leaves a mark on your life.
Moi, à cette époque, j'avais 19 ans, je connaissais
At the time, I was 19 years old.
ça m'a appris
I didn't know much about life.
personnellement
It taught me a lot. It taught me personally to live more intensely,
à faire
to
attention,
pay attention to my choices, and to pay attention to my friends,
à respecter la
to
vie,
respect life.
de resserrer les liens avec tout le monde, puisque
To build ties with everyone,
ça peut arriver,
because it could happen to anybody.
arriver à n'importe qui.
spéléologie est la dernière activité.
Speleology is the last activity in the world that allows us to uncover territories completely untouched by civilization.
C'est quand même fabuleux.
It's fabulous.
Tous les sommets
All the mountains have already been climbed by one route or another, but underground there's still much to discover.
par une autre
Today we still find new networks of 30, 40, even 50 kilometers.
qui peuvent faire 30, 40, 50 kilomètres.
Viterreu is now officially sealed off from the world. The military zone is closed to cavers. No one will explore the cave system anytime soon. That is, unless cavers can find a new way in. To this day, many continue to search for that possible fissure, that possible crack that will lead them back down into the abyss.
Si demain on ouvre
If tomorrow we find a new entrance to that network,
ce réseau,
I will be the first to return.
et y retourner,